Hello everybody, I'm back.
And we're running late.
Missed you lots. I'm really sorry that we are a bit late. We had problems with IT. So hopefully you can see us and hear us. Let us know by pinging in front, joining us so that you can hear us. We are the infant feeding team. Alex is the one that's been here in the last few weeks. And I'm Naomi, one of the infant feeding midwives as well. And we work at the John Radcliffe Hospital. We are today International Day of the Midwife.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you know that, or you've seen it coming up on your feed. You might have seen it on the OMDP page. They may have done something on Facebook as well. So we're celebrating midwives for 100 years and everything that we do. So yeah, there's lots of balloons and things going on in the hospital, so if you're not sure what it was all about, that's why it's the International Day of the Midwife, and midwives have got badges on the ward if you've seen that. So we are doing an hour session of questions and answers on infant feeding and anything to do with infant feeding that you would like to talk about. So if it's early days, if it's pregnant, if you're wanting to formula feed, whatever way you're feeding. We're the infant feeding team, not breastfeeding midwives, so we support you whichever way you want to feed your baby, and that's really important. So please do ask questions about either, and that goes for combination feeding as well, which lots and lots of you are doing. And also weaning. You know, it's not just in the first few weeks, we go beyond that, up to 1, 2, whatever you want to talk about. Babies feed for many years sometimes, and that's absolutely normal for that family. So, you know, most babies tend to feed at least for the first 2 years. They rarely self-wean before their 3rd year. So, you know, it's quite a normal thing for babies to have long feeding as well.
I remember looking into it and talking about when humans would self-wean, and you look at the parameters of what a normal self-weaning age would be if we left humans to their own devices, and it's somewhere between 3 and 8. I think most people find that quite surprising. Because I think, you know, here in the UK at least, it's still quite unusual to see, well, for people to be aware of babies that are fed up to the age of 3, which happens
about a lot.
No, it happens a lot more than I think people realise that babies are fed. And actually, if you've got that wonderful relationship, it's the most fantastic mothering tool. It's absolutely wonderful. Talk about the best thing to deal with bumps and bruises and, you know, tummy upsets and everything. Yeah, absolutely. Ear infections. It's just wonderful. So
you can have breast milk if your baby's got an upset tummy, whereas you can't give formula to babies when they've got an upset tummy. And how many of you got 18-month-old plus that get sick bugs from every time they go to playgroup or nursery or childminder or wherever, or they've got older siblings that bring it back from school? You know, they can have breast milk and they can keep having breast milk, and it's got everything they could possibly want and more. So you know, it's a whole food package. So yeah,
I just want to say, you asked people to say hello. Jade has said hello, so thank you Jade for saying hello, so we know that we're up and live. Emily, you've popped up a question. I'm not sure we're the right people to answer, I'm afraid, but we can signpost you definitely in the right direction. Emily, you said, I've been referred for induction yesterday, when will I get a date and time? I'm afraid that's not our remit. We're the infant feeding team. Perhaps you give your community midwife a quick call and see if she can find out for you. She's probably going to be your best bet, and she'll let you know. You will get a call, and they will let you know when it's going to happen. But yeah, I can't tell you on timings.
And also, I think there's some midwife sessions on a Monday, so maybe there's a session on a Monday. Is it every Monday or is it alternate Monday?
I think it's alternate Monday.
So they did one last week, so it may not be for a little while, so you don't want to wait that long and worry, but it could be that you can ask your midwife to get in touch with you.
She's come back and said thank you already.
Yeah. So yeah, don't ask us about scans and things, because we really don't know the right answer, and we don't want to give you the wrong answer, which is more upsetting, isn't it? So so we've had a busy morning clinic and seeing mums on the ward today, and you know, all the usual stuff that goes on in clinic. Lots of lovely babies that we've seen today, with lots of different things going on.
And you can probably hear there's a baby crying next door. We're on level 7 in one of the postnatal rooms today, but we thought we'd bring our screen up because it is International Day of the Midwife, and we were hoping to put some posters up, but there doesn't seem to be any available. No. So you'll have to make do with our beautiful pictures instead.
And we're looking out at the helicopter, which has landed just before we came here. So hopefully we won't get, well, we probably will get disturbed by it as it takes off again. So apologies if you hear that happening. It's the air ambulance coming in. So today we thought we'd talk about something slightly different, didn't we? Which is lactation when you're not pregnant, which is something that we do get approached about quite a lot, and that might be that you've got mums adopting babies, or you've got mums that are surrogates, and so the mum who's having the baby, she wants to lactate before she has the baby. You have same-sex couples wanting to do that as well. Who else does it? I think that's it really.
That's it. Yeah, it tends to be adoption, mothers who have babies by surrogacy, and when you've got same-sex relationship that both partners can lactate.
Yeah, and I don't know whether you know that you can do that, and sometimes even if you haven't actually made milk before, you can still do that, and quite a lot of women do that.
Yeah, and very successfully. We've met a fair few mothers recently who have chosen to do this. And the earlier the better, to be honest. If it's something that you want to do, if you're going to have a baby by surrogacy and that's all being arranged in advance, then actually the sooner you approach someone to support you with doing this, the better, because the longer that you have to get ready for lactation, the better results that you'll get. And at one of the occasions that I've supported a mother doing this, we only had a month, and she did manage to produce some milk, even though we only had a month. But actually, our breasts normally take 9 months to get ready for it. So the longer period of time will actually result in a better milk supply overall.
It's normally 8 to 12 weeks, isn't it, before people start a programme, and you'd need to see your GP to discuss it with the GP. But we do have mums or women ringing us up and asking us for advice before they even have a baby in the equation, and they want to know what the options are for them because they've perhaps read about it or somebody's mentioned it to them and they're not quite sure where to go and what to do. But it is a discussion with GPs, and there is a very well documented protocol by Jack Newman, who is a Canadian paediatrician, and it's Goldfarb, isn't it?
Yes, because he did it in conjunction with Leonore Goldfarb.
So it's the Goldfarb guidelines, and it's very well documented if you wanted to look it up and read about it, because it's something that you have thought about and you're listening to us today. So it's not uncommon, and we are very happy to talk to anybody that would like to run through it with us for whatever reason. And we do get surrogate mothers here, and they're not always, mothers aren't always in the trust, in Oxfordshire Trust. It may be that they're pregnant in our trust and the babies are somewhere else, but actually they want to get going with that. So it is a real gift that you can give to your partner or a baby that you adopt, because it's not just about the food. So even if you haven't quite got enough food to feed your baby, we often use something called a supplementer alongside mothers that are surrogate or have adopted, and they use a little tube on their breast, and their milk goes from a bottle into the baby, so they get their breast milk, and they also either have donor breast milk or they have formula. So, and that can also increase the milk production if the baby's suckling at the breast while mum is maintaining and learning to lactate and make milk. So, it is very successful, and so we do support mums in clinics doing that or on the ward when they've had their babies in the early days.
And we act as the liaison with the GP, because in order to lactate, to induce lactation, the Newman Goldfarb protocol talks about mimicking pregnancy. So we mimic pregnancy by using a pill, as in oral contraception pill, because that's mimicking pregnancy, and we use domperidone to raise prolactin levels and then start pumping. So obviously we need a GP on side on those in that situation in order to prescribe those medications, because obviously it's not something you can get anywhere else. You'd have to go to your GP. So
a lot of GPs don't know about it, do they?
Yeah,
so
and
it's not something they come across very often.
So we've been that sort of conduit. We've been that liaison person with GPs when people have wanted to induce lactation in that instance. So we've often written to the GPs explaining how it's done and why it might be beneficial for this person to be supported to do this. We've got quite a few questions coming through, actually.
Oh, let's go then. So if you've got any questions about what we've talked about, because it is or anything else, but it is quite an unusual thing, and if you want to know and you don't want to discuss it in this forum, then give us a call as well. We'd be very happy to talk to you.
Kate just said, I'm going back to work when my baby will be 4 months old in July. She's 6 weeks now. She's breastfed except for one formula bottle in the night. How do I build up more bottles in time for return to work? And when would I have to do this? Would I be able to keep one breastfeed? Sorry, my emails are crashing the screen. Dismiss. I can't see it. So, it is literally, the email has crashed. It's gone across the writing.
So, if you're going back to work, I mean, we'll start the question just while Alex is,
trying to see the question.
It's just stuck on the screen. She can't read the question. So, I think if you're going back in 4 months, I wouldn't do it too quickly. I think that babies will adapt to it, and if you are going back to, you haven't said whether you're going back full time or part time, as from what we've read. So far, but it might be that you're going back part-time, so it means that you're only maybe working 3 days a week or 4 days a week. You can manage your lactation if it's not you're not working long shifts and more shifts in a week than probably 3 or 4, but you can do it anyway if you're working five shifts a week or 5 days a week. What you need to do is have access to pumping at work, and if you are a lactating person before 6 months, you've got a lot of legal support by law to be able to pump at work. So it depends what you want to do, whether you're wanting to wean off breastfeeding before you go back to work, or whether you want to be able to breastfeed when you continue working. So if you're wanting to pump while you're at work, then they have got to make facilities for you at work to do that. So you'll need a private room, not a toilet. You have access to a fridge and access to being able to wash your hands and in a clean environment. So that's very important that you have got access to privacy as part of your employment, and that you are protected by law for that if you're before 6 months when you go back to work, especially before 6 months. You have got support beyond 6 months, but because breast milk is your primary baby's food, which it is until a year, but actually they're not getting anything other than breast milk at that time, then by law they have to be able to allow you to get milk from you to give to your baby. So it may be that you get pump breaks when you're working, and so you can then take milk home and put it in the fridge for when you're at work, and then your baby can have express milk in a bottle. But if you're wanting to wean off, then probably a couple of weeks before you go back, maybe 2 to 3 weeks before you go back to work, you can start to wean down a little bit with your milk production. So you don't, unless you want to stop before that, and that's what you're planning on doing, but actually, you can maybe drop one feed and just take milk off till you're comfortable when you're reducing the breastfeeds. And so you're not doing a full pump, but you're taking a little bit of milk off till you're comfortable in order to do that. And then it might be the next day you do another one in that day, so you drop 2.
I'm going to shut the window because the helicopter's about to take off.
Then we definitely won't be able to talk about that. But actually, your milk suppresses quite quickly once you start doing that. And it means if you're breastfeeding at night, and you're not doing any suppressing at night, you can still keep giving your breast milk at night to your baby. If it wakes at night for feed. So it might be that you get home from work at 5, 6 o'clock, your baby can have a suckle at that time, and then they may have another one before you go to bed, and then they may suckle in the night, and then one before you go to work in the morning. So actually 50% of your feeds can still be done at the breast.
And this is exactly what Kate said, because the latter part of the question that I could not read said, would I be able to keep one breastfeed, etc., e.g. before bed once I'm back to work? Absolutely. Many women do.
Yeah. That's what it says on the tin, so if you ask your breast to do it, they will do it. So if you don't ask them to make milk, they'll stop making milk. But if you just reduce a few and then breastfeed at certain times of the day, so maybe first thing in the morning, bedtime, when you get in from work, or before you go to bed, that's full breastfeeds, and it's 50% of your baby's food already in the day, and then the rest of it you can do on express milk when you're at work if you want to, and you can keep doing that till 6 months or beyond if it works for you. But your employer has got to, by law, provide you an area to do that, and has to give you breaks to do that.
Maternity Alliance, isn't it?
Yeah.
So have a look at Maternity Alliance because it outlines what your rights are.
Yeah.
And I believe your rights, they're not extensive, but they are rights to a lockable room with access to a fridge and time. So
Pump breaks.
it's just, that's
shouldn't
what,
be in your lunch break.
Yeah,
before 6 months particularly.
And as Naomi said, it should not be in the bathroom either.
So yes, it's very doable, and you know, you can manage it according to your supply and how you behave. You know, some people are very sensitive to dropping a feed, and you know, you've got to be very careful that you don't get something like mastitis if you don't take milk off till you're comfortable, if you're suppressing. So don't do it overnight if you want to stop, and you know, make sure that you take milk off until you're comfortable, so your breasts don't get really full, and then you get problems with mastitis as a potential problem.
Yeah.
And you know, we do find mums get mastitis because they've slept an extra hour in bed at night,
or worn a tight bra,
or worn a tight bra. They've changed their underwear, or they've slept really heavily on one side, and their breast is, you know, just squished a bit on the bed, and that's all it does to tip them to really nasty mastitis. So you know, just be really aware that you know, you could be sensitive to that, and make sure that you're tuned into what your breasts are doing if you're suppressing at certain times of the day, and just take it off till you're comfortable. So don't do a full pump, you just take it off till you're comfortable if that's the time that you don't want to be breastfeeding again. And eventually your supply will sort itself out.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that was Kate's question. So good luck going back to work, and well done for doing the breastfeeding already up to 6 weeks. That's fantastic. Emily came back and said thank you about signposting her to the other chat. Jade has come back, the Jade who said hello first thing. She said, we've reached 3 months of breastfeeding, which is amazing for us. Didn't think I'd get this far. I want to try and make it to a year, but I'm so scared about teeth. He already chomps on me now.
You know, I was going to talk about teeth when you were talking about long-term breastfeeding, and then we got distracted by something. But
it's
actually,
a phase, isn't it? It's very much a phase.
I think that, you know, babies don't use their gums and their teeth to breastfeed. They use their mouth and they use their tongue. So you know, they shouldn't affect your feeding, and you know, the teeth are well beyond that. So,
but you can't say that babies don't bite once in a while, because they do, and it is, you know, there are so many different viewpoints on how to deal with it. In fact, I sent myself an email about something the other day, and I haven't had a chance to read it, and that was about biting, so that would be worth reading, and maybe we'll feed back about what they said. We've always said that, you know, it's making sure you bring your baby on to with that really chin leading, so they're going to bring their tongue over the bottom gum, so over the teeth, and the top teeth should just rest on the breast. They shouldn't do you any harm, but many mums who've breastfed will tell you that they've been bitten once in a while. It does happen, but it does tend to be a phase. You know,
and if you react to it, they'll do it again because they think they get a good reaction from mummy. So, you know, by the time they've got teeth, they're pretty knowing about what's going on and what's not right and what is right. So they will nibble you if you let, you know, if they do that. And sometimes when they're teething, they will do that as well. And they're looking at how it affects you. You know.
It would be interesting for anybody on here who's got a baby with teeth just to come back and comment, actually, because that, you know, because the recommendation is that, you know, ideally it's 6 months exclusive, up to a year alongside other foods, and up to 2 years and beyond is still beneficial. There are many people out there doing long-term breastfeeding, and those children will have teeth and they are still being breastfed. So, you know, it's not all bad. You do get past that phase, but I'm not going to say it never happens, because you will get. It's likely
at some point in your breastfeeding.
It's likely that you will get bitten at some point.
Yeah, and it will make you jump. So it's how you respond to it that the baby repeats it or not.
I'll look at that biting article I sent myself, because if I see something interesting and I haven't got time to read it, I email it to myself, and I did the other day. So I remember I've seen it in my email. So we'll come back next week and we'll talk about it. And we'll let you know, Jade.
And those of you that have had to deal with it, let us know how you dealt with it.
Yeah. Gemma has written, apologies, slightly off topic, which I don't think it is, having read the question. Is it harder for a C-section baby to breastfeed? And what can you recommend to encourage breastfeeding? And what is lovely is that Kate's come straight back and jumped in. She goes, hi Gemma, sorry to jump on this. I had an emergency C-section and have been able to breastfeed. As soon as I went to observation area, I have help feeding my baby quickly. So take advantage of all the amazing help you can get whilst in hospital. Good luck. And that's absolutely true. But just because you have a C-section does not mean it's going to be more difficult to breastfeed your baby. What we do know is sometimes it's a slight delay in skin-to-skin contact, which seems to have a little bit of an impact on how quickly your milk comes in. So that's more of an issue. So if you have in the back of your head, you know, if I end up having a section, I want my baby skin to skin as soon as possible, and really be on it and proactive, like Kate has been here, got lots of help when she was on OA, which is observation area, by the way, that's our recovery area, then there's no reason why you should have any more problems than anybody else. So
I think just be aware, and it's, you know, it's not always that we can't offer you skin to skin, it's often that you won't tolerate it.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you've had an epidural, and if it's a particularly high epidural, it's right up here, you find it quite hard to breathe when you're lying flat, and it's quite scary. But also you get quite shaky. The medication that they give you does make you feel a bit shaky, and sometimes are sick, and you're cold. You feel cold, and it is a little bit tricky when somebody's rummaging around in your tummy afterwards, putting everything back together. It feels a bit odd. So everyone's experience is slightly different of the section and where you come in from it, and the things that are going on around you. But if you're feeling up to it, and most women are, then make sure that you do skin to skin as soon as you can, and keep your baby really warm while he's skin to skin. So they're often tucked right underneath your ear.
Your chin.
And if you have nothing underneath your gown, and you make it so that you can put your baby onto your front as soon as the baby's born, then that will encourage skin to skin really early, as Alex has already said, and that massively impacts milk production. So most of our postnatal readmissions are from theatre deliveries, so cesarean or instrumental births that have had delay in skin to skin. So we say every week here, make sure you do lots of uninterrupted skin to skin in the first hour, because you don't get that time back. And it's lovely if your partners do it, but they don't have the hormones to give to you to make the milk, and it's about stimulating your hormones. And that first breastfeed, that baby is more likely to behave in a neonatal way by feeding early if it's on you. And if your baby's tucked away somewhere else, it won't have that behaviour if it's not near you. So, if the earlier you stimulate, the more you stimulate your breasts in the first hour. And actually, mothers that have fed on one breast have got, usually when their milk comes in, they usually say if they feed on their right breast for the first feed and don't feed on the left breast for a couple of hours, they have more milk in the breast that they fed on in the first hour.
That's one of our questions, isn't it? Which side did you feed on straight after birth?
Yeah, and that the feed is very slightly different. That early 1 hour stimulation makes the milk the most. So the other thing you can do is, if you have got a cesarean and your baby's not really attaching well, is hand express on both breasts in the first hour. And if your baby's fed on one side, hand express on the other side, whatever, when you've had your baby. And that will really whack up your stimulations for milk production in the next few days, which means that you don't get the postnatal readmissions. The other thing is that if you've had an epidural, for instance, the medication in the epidural is morphine derivative, and so some babies are a little bit more sleepy in the first few days if they've had an epidural. So that's if you've had a normal delivery or you've had any instrumental delivery, it doesn't matter, but actually having medication will have an impact on your baby waking up for feeds.
Helicopters coming back in again.
It's a busy afternoon in the helicopter world. So it's a different one this time, it's yellow, isn't it? So it will impact your milk production. It will impact your milk production if you're not proactive. And it's not about making milk in the first day or two, it's about stimulations. So it's about stimulating your breasts early and frequently in the first 48 hours. That is the impact that most massively has an impression on your milk production. So hand expressing, if you can't breastfeed, is essential. So if your baby is sleepy and not waking up to feed in those early days, you've got to do the stimulation for your baby. And it's not about food in the first few days, because your baby's got special fat cells on the back of its neck and around its body which feed the brain if the baby's not getting food. And tiny volumes in the early days. Baby's tummy is, it would be rude for me not to get these out.
I'm getting that every session.
Got to keep going with this one. So your baby's tummy is tiny, so we talk about tiny volumes in the early days. So your baby's tummy is tiny. It doesn't need large amounts of food, but your breasts need stimulating. You have got to do that hand expressing if your baby won't feed. So we say 3 feeds in the first 24 hours. But if your baby is, not feeding as that often, you need to be able to hand express and learn how to do that sometimes before you have your baby. Some people do that before they have the baby to learn that skill, and we encourage that. You don't need to collect milk, but you need to learn how to do hand expressing before you have your baby, because then you know what to do when you come in. But it's that early stimulation, really important. So yes, it does have an impact indirectly, and lots of people breastfeed very successfully after a cesarean.
Yes, I was going to
But
say
you
that.
have to
Don't
be
be
aware
frightened.
of it.
Don't be
You
frightened.
have to be aware of it, and everybody's circumstances are different, and your baby might be premature or it may be separated from you because of the cesarean, or whatever's happened. Then you have got to do that stimulation for your breasts if your baby can't. So just make sure that you do lots of hand expressing if your baby is taken to the neonatal unit for any reason.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's Kate. Hope that helps. A really comprehensive answer. Charlotte is telling us that Alicia is going to be 2 tomorrow.
No.
Yeah. Happy birthday to
Come round quickly.
her.
Yes, it's May, isn't it?
That's amazing.
Wonderful.
Incredible. That's gone really quickly. Congratulations, Charlotte.
Have a lovely day tomorrow.
Jade's come back. Her baby sleeps 10-11 hours, but I give him a dream feed when I go to bed. If I miss this feed, is it okay for him to go that long without a feed? If he doesn't wait for one, he's 3 months old. It's quite a long time. I'd be more.
Babies sleep 7 till 7 at that age, and a lot don't, do they?
I'd be more concerned about your breasts, actually. I'd be worried about you getting mastitis, because we've already mentioned you can get mastitis for numerous reasons, and one of them is sleeping. Is not removing milk for a long period of time, and it is thought that ideally you wouldn't go longer than 6 hours between removing milk from your breast. The likelihood is you would wake up and feel very, very full. So maybe your baby's taking all they need, and the rest of the day, the other sort of 12 hours or so, they're getting all 14 hours. They're getting what they need at that point in time, and that's fine then. But I would be
Probably
a little.
feed a lot in the day if they have a 12-hour sleep.
Yeah, you're not going to get many breaks in a day if they're going.
Half of their day is not being feeding.
Yeah.
So
I think ideally, if you can keep your dream feed going, I think that's a very, very good option. And the other thing I would say is, I can't remember how old your baby is now.
3 months.
Is that, oh yes, you said at the bottom, is that just because they're doing it now doesn't mean it always continue, because that's what babies are like. They'll get into a pattern for a few weeks and then it'll change again. So I would, personally, I think carrying on with your dream feed is a really good idea, but maximise on the sleep that you can get.
I think the other thing to say is that 12 weeks, babies often start waking up at night and feeding for about a week. They feed a lot at night, and they're stepping up milk. The milk change, composition of the milk changes as they start to develop different stages. So you might find that your baby wakes up, or it might have just done that, where between about 11 and 13 weeks they tend to be very busy at night, and they wake up when they've slept long periods. They start waking up at night again for a little while, and they're just stepping up milk production again. But it's quite poignant at about 3 months that they do that. So you might find that suddenly happens if it hasn't already.
Yeah. Just see what happens. Yeah, but just beware.
Watch your breasts.
I was about to say, just beware of your breasts. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, you don't want to have to.
And as long as your baby's pooing and weeing appropriate to age. I mean, by the time you've got to 3 months, we're not expecting a daily poo from them. They can quite often go longer. But as long as you're getting, nice heavy wet nappies, numerous heavy wet nappies a day, and that your baby's gaining weight appropriately, and that the stools are nice, still yellow, nice and soft, then we wouldn't be really worried. So yeah. Anyway, Kate's gone, thanks so much, that was really helpful. That was your answer to Kate, so that's brilliant. Lydia has said, hi Alex, hope you're well. Now that I've got a good milk supply and I'm reducing pumping sessions, would reducing by 1 pumping session per day each week be a gradual enough reduction to protect my supply? Thank you for all your support. Lydia, I think that sounds like a very good idea. Take it very gradually, and it's the whole thing about, when we're talking to people about pumping, and we do a lot of talking about pumping, is we never see it as the long-term aim. It's not what we want you to be doing in the long term. We want you to be able to be breastfeeding. We do it for a reason, and we do it within a finite period of time, and the idea is that you can then scale it back over time. And once your baby's getting enough and that isn't an issue, then you can start scaling the pumping back. So I think, yes, that sounds perfectly good way of approaching it. Don't do it too rapidly. Again, you would be risking mastitis. We've had quite a few people in recently with really nasty mastitis, and it's taking quite a lot to resolve, so we don't want any more. So yes, just take it gently, take it carefully, be really aware of your breasts. if you think, okay, I'm feeling really quite full again, just take off enough to make yourself comfortable. When we were talking to someone earlier today about, you're not always aiming to drain the breasts, you're aiming for comfort when you want to reduce the supply. So draining the breast, you'll just keep producing the same amount. Taking off enough to be comfortable, then you're going to start bringing your supply down.
You've got an enzyme in the milk which is released, so when your breasts get full, they send a message called the feedback inhibitor of lactation, so it stops you producing milk. So if your breasts are slightly full and you don't empty them, then it tells the body to stop producing the milk, so that's why it works. So on the converse side of that, if you don't take milk out of your breast, then your milk supply will go down, and that's what we see a lot of, is that mums give bottles instead of breastfeeding, and very quickly in the early days the milk supply is dampened down, and then they end up with not enough milk because they don't realise that if they don't take it off, they don't make the next feed. So that's how it works. For if you're suppressing or if you're trying to stimulate, it's the opposite sides of it, but it has that impact. It stops milk production.
So carry on the topic about C-sections and feeding. So it's Jude, I think it's Jude's replying to Gemma. She says, as Kate has said, awesome support on the recovery and also the maternity ward with feeding. I'm really glad to hear that. I didn't have issues with colostrum and milk coming in and had a C-section and had lots of support and guidance. Definitely ask for support, as they all know so much and are so lovely. Well, that is really nice to hear.
It's lovely feedback on the day of the midwife, isn't
it is, and we'll relay that back to level 5, because those that have been through level 5 will know that it has been really quite busy. In fact, we've been busy for a long time now, and it can make it more challenging to give the support that we would like to give. So that's lovely.
Massive number of people coming in and going out every day.
Yes.
Huge amount of paperwork, as you know, having to wait for your paperwork to be done. It's a huge thing. So
Jade said she's going to watch it later because she's struggling with signal on here, so that's hopefully she'll get her answers that she needed. Gemma said, thanks all, had a tough start breastfeeding my first, succeeded to 17 months. Well, that's a success.
That's wonderful.
Just want to make sure I'm fully prepared for all eventualities for my second. So that's absolutely brilliant. So well done,
any questions,
Gemma.
call us. We can just chat through on the phone if that's needed.
We're doing more and more antenatal conversations now. We do a lot of antenatal appointments for women that are struggling. So, and actually some of them have come about because they've listened to this. So, sort of women that we would really like to talk to before you have your babies are the women that are maybe on slightly greater risk of not producing enough milk. So someone, if you're struggling with polycystic ovaries or being diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, hypothyroidism, if you've ever had any chest or breast surgery or even back surgery that would affect the nerves that innervate the breast, then we would like to hear from you to have a chat about how can we try and make sure we do put everything in place to give you the best chance possible of producing as much milk as possible and get breastfeeding off to a good start. We just know that some things can increase the risk of you struggling.
Back surgery will be here, not at the bottom, so if you've had discs and things done, that won't affect it, but it's if you've had anything to do with your lungs or ribs or anything here, then that might affect the fourth intercostal nerve, which goes round into your nipple and sends messages to the brain. So
maybe
that's
I should
been
say
severed.
Upper back. Upper back.
So we don't want calls from people that have had laminectomies and things like that. That doesn't affect milk production.
No, it's top. It's
up. It's sort of anything that's on your rib cage up
around
here.
This area.
So you'll know if you've had it.
Okay, Gemma, wishing you all the best for the second then. Charlotte said we're spending time with some family, and then next week we're off on holiday to Fuerteventura, and it's going to be Alicia's first flight.
Wow.
Hopefully she can.
Very grown up.
Hopefully I can listen to this chat when I'm over there. Well, we have to tell us if you're there, because you'll be one of our.
We don't want to know the weather forecast though, because it'll be better than here. It's quite nice
can't complain today. We're on 7, so we've got a fabulous view. Lydia's come back and said thank you, so that's great. So and just let us know, Lydia, you've got the number. Give us a shout if you're struggling. Lisa, I wanted to say a massive thanks for the support I received from you last year. Noah's still feeding at 14 months. Woo!
Well done you.
Never thought we would get that far after a difficult feeding journey with my first boy and a tricky start this time. Also had a C-section, and I was given great support and recovery with skin to skin and feeding. So I'm absolutely delighted with all this wonderful feedback that our observation area are getting today. That's absolutely brilliant. Really, really good. They'll be delighted. We'll go and make them all happy down there.
Because it's jolly busy.
Yeah. So I'm so pleased to hear that, Lisa. Congratulations, 14 months is fabulous. And there you go, we were talking about teeth. So Noah must have some teeth, and you're still feeding.
And nobody said they've had babies that they haven't been able to deal with.
Yeah, so it is scary, and I have to say, when you are bitten, as a breastfeeding mother, it is sore. Thank God you love your babies so much, though. It makes all the
not like
difference.
them sometimes.
No, that's what I say to my children. I don't like you right now, but I'll always love you. Of course, they've grown up. They're okay. Not too much help from psychologists needed. Anyway, Jenna said, I don't know if maybe you've missed my messages. Lots commented at the same time. Let me scoot back up, Jenna, and thank you for the reminder. Let me see if I've missed it. On occasions, they disappear. Oh, where is Jenna's?
It's going to be one of those that doesn't come up. Perhaps you can rewrite it again.
Yeah, it has happened in the past.
Sometimes, for some reason, they don't appear.
That is really weird. It's not there. I'm going to refresh.
Just sometimes they don't come up.
Jenna said sorry. I don't know what you're saying sorry for. It's me that needs to say sorry. I'm just going to have one more look, and then I'm going to refresh the page.
It might have been when the email came and froze everything. It didn't come through.
Yeah. Let me just go back out and try again. So,
who needs technology, eh?
Yeah, great fun. So let me just go right out and I'll come back in. So you can show some wonderful pictures behind you.
Yes, I was going to say we've got lots of different pictures of mums breastfeeding. I don't know if you can see them very well on there, but we've got all sorts of wonderful positions from all over the world. Someone's sailing a boat while they're breastfeeding, and this one's lovely. I don't know if you can see this, but this baby's upside down feeding.
Well, that's multitasking for you, isn't it?
They're all lovely big babies as well, so they're experienced. But look at that one. How many of you have done that in the middle of the night and woken up with a baby on your face? I'm sure a lot of you have. They're quite funny, aren't they? So lots of lovely pictures that we have. I'm going to lose that one. I think it's going to fall off now.
Take them off because they're not going to stay. I'm just going to see if I can see.
Alex?
Oh, we're on a call. We're on Facebook Live.
I know you are. I'm trying to come in to give you something on a friend of Facebook Live.
Oh, right. Apparently someone's coming out.
Oh, this is unplanned, I tell you.
Oh.
It's completely unplanned.
Go sit down. You'll have to come in again, darling. Sorry to disturb your Facebook Live, everybody. But it's International Day of the Midwife.
We know, we talked about it.
And we wanted to give you your flowers on Facebook Live.
Do you want to duck down so you can be seen?
Oh, look at this.
This is Sasha.
Hello. And this is Debbie.
Hi everybody. Hello.
Debbie.
Happy International Day of the Midwife for midwives that are
Thank
logged
you
on.
for everything that you do for us. You're amazing.
Right, we'll leave you to it now.
Well, we've had lots of wonderful feedback today from these mums.
OA and level 5 have had
and
some
level
really good feedback today. It's been
Brilliant.
lovely.
And
So
some of
really
you
picking
might
that back.
recognise Sasha as well, because she's
Oh,
been
look at
on
all
the
the hearts
ward.
coming up.
Lovely.
So we're one big
Yeah.
family here. It's lovely.
So you've got the lovely Sasha Ream and the lovely Debbie Rolls. So,
Right, we'll let you get back to your
Thank you.
session.
Thank you. It's like Santa Claus.
yeah, we're lucky. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, see, never a dull moment in eternity.
I'm going to see if I can see that message now. Poor old Jenna, she might have to just put it back up again.
Hopefully you've had time to write it while we've been distracted doing
I know,
things.
that was really fun. I could hear them coming in. I wonder what they were up to.
There's a big sign on the door saying Facebook Live, so
Facebook Live.
unless they want to be on screen, nobody comes in voluntarily.
No, they obviously didn't mind. Jenna, I can't see
So
it.
if you post the question again, that would be great,
Please,
Gemma, and then we can.
please.
Have we got any other questions?
I think we have a bit more come through. Let me have a
Have
quick
we?
peek. I can't see Jenna's. Yeah, the first one I've got is the one that I missed. I'm really sorry, Jenna. Pop it back up, please. Lisa has said Noah got teeth at 3 months. He was a bit nibbly for a while, but it stopped quickly. There you go. Reassurance, it doesn't continue. So not so bad.
Mine didn't get teeth till 10 months, so I was quite lucky.
You were really lucky. My kids had teeth at 6 months. So
Some get them really early, and we do have babies born with teeth. I don't know if any of you are listening that had babies with teeth, but we've had a few recently, and they've definitely had some teeth there, and they've had to go see a dentist because we don't want the teeth to get wobbly and then their babies eat them. So they inhale them. So they have them taken out, I think, sometimes.
Right.
It's quite unusual, but very familial. So if your parents had, said you had teeth, or grandma had teeth or something, then it might be that your baby gets teeth when they're born.
Charlotte said, happy International Midwife Day to all midwives, infant feeding team, Chipping Norton and JR Midwife Centre and Spas. That's lovely, thank you. Now Jenna, and Grace has given us some, Grace is clapping us, which is lovely. Jenna has said she's just posted, but I can't see it. It doesn't want to come up.
Oh,
Jenna, I wonder if we've had this before, if it's a really long question. I don't know, maybe it isn't, but if it's a longish question, do it in a couple of bits, because I remember this happening before, and it just would not come through. And I think sometimes it doesn't. And I haven't seen it come. I've got my laptop in front of me, which is where I check the questions, and they come up on the screen. And I'm just going to check there, but I don't think. I'm going to try and do this without knocking anybody off.
I don't touch any of it. So we talk about making sure your baby's getting enough milk and all that stimulation. It's really important that you do that stimulation in the early days, because it's crucial to your baby getting enough milk when it's older. And we've had some big weight losses coming back in where babies are sleepy, and more often than not, if your baby, we don't weigh babies until day 5 when they're normal, as in their term, and they haven't got any medical problems. So if you've got a baby that's premature, or it's small for gestational age, or you've had an induction because your baby isn't growing very well, then the midwife will weigh your baby on day 3. Obviously, if you've got problems, if your baby is vulnerable because it's early or it's small, they haven't got much to lose. So it's very important that you really get on with that protection. So if you know that you're going to have your baby early for any reason, it might be that you really do concentrate on that hand expressing before you have your baby, but also collection of colostrum, so that you've got extra for when your baby is born. But also you've got that really good skill when you have your baby, so that you can get on and really start that milk production off. Because yesterday we had a baby came in at day 3 that had lost 12.6%. That's quite a large weight loss on day 3. We sort of say about 8% maximum. So if your baby is, say, 36, 34, 36 weeks, you'll be in hospital for at least 3 days, if not 5 days when you have an early baby, because if they've lost more than 8% on day 3, then you won't be able to go home from hospital. But if you're, if you are at home because your baby is well enough to be home before that time, we wouldn't want your baby to lose more than 8% on day 3. And then by the time you get to day 5, when we weigh babies, we look at about 10% as the maximum that we will tolerate. And I think when your baby, depending on how your baby is and what you're wanting to do when your baby has lost that weight, but from about 12% onwards, it may be that your baby will come into hospital for feeling support. So we want to make sure that we give you support to make more milk, because it may be that you've had delayed milk production, perhaps you haven't done as much skin to skin, or your baby was separated in the early days like we talked about earlier, and so we want to make sure that you can catch up. And as you probably all know that have listened in frequently to these sessions, we've got donor breast milk available to babies on the ward most of the time. Actually, and you had a wonderful session, didn't you, with
a couple of weeks ago. We were down in the milk bank, so if you want to watch one from 2 weeks ago and want to know about the milk bank and all the rigmarole the milk goes through to make sure it's safe for use, and have a look and see what the freezers look like. I mean, they look fabulous because they're so stocked up with milk. And listen to Amanda talking about the processes and what she's looking for and how long you can donate for, and if you were to receive it, etc. Then that was a really good session with Amanda. She was fabulous.
And it's such a gift from women for women, and it's not a given that you get it, and it's not a given that you can take any home either, because that's not something that's available normally. And actually, we are probably one of the only hospitals in the UK that offers donor breast milk to mums on the ward as a regular thing. It's very, very, very unusual. And most postnatal wards in the country give formula when babies aren't feeding well, and very few of you should be receiving formula unless you've asked for it, if you're having to supplement your baby. So if you aren't offered donor breast milk for any reason, which is unusual, just make sure that you know about it, so that if your baby isn't feeding enough, that you have the option to do that. However, if you've gone home and given your baby formula at home before you come in, then you're not entitled to have it when you come back in, because you've broken exclusivity by giving formula to your baby, which is great, your baby needed it, but you're not on the requirements for getting donor breast milk if you come back in as a postnatal readmission for any reason. So we do it to protect exclusivity, and if you find yourself having loads of milk in the freezer, or you're interested in donating milk, I think that we're always wanting milk donated, and I think that we've had a lot of mums donating which are coming to the end of their year. I think they started donating quite early on, and they've been donating for a year. So there is room for more donors. We always want more donors. So if you're talking amongst each other, with your friends, and so one of them's got more milk and they don't listen to this, then make that a suggestion that they could volunteer to donate some milk. And I think that you don't have to give more than about 8 bottles, isn't it?
I can't remember what the minimum is. I think Amanda would have said at that time. Jenna's has come through, by the way.
Oh, so, lovely.
Yeah, so she broke it down into about 3 different bits. So, and I really feel for her, poor darling. So Jenna, she said, I'm exclusively breastfeeding my baby now for 5 months. I'm on day 3 of COVID.
Oh, rotten.
And usually I think a little bit missing here, but I think I'm getting the gist that usually she can feel her breasts are full, but they're floppy and feel empty. She's got a big crying face on here. My baby is more fussy than normal too, so worried my milk's gone. Is this likely to happen at all? I'll be devastated if I have to stop. I think this is going to be a blip. This is going to be a response to you not feeling very well. I think you just keep going.
Look at your baby's nappies.
Yeah, keep going. Keep offering the breast. You might want to do a bit of a baby moon. Go to bed with your baby. Don't do too much yourself. And just hopefully you haven't got any older ones, or if you have, someone else can help look after them. And just give your baby free access at the breast.
Has your baby got COVID as well? Sometimes if they're not very well, they're not suckling as effectively, so it might be you need to pump a bit as well in order to keep that stimulation going if your baby's having shorter feeds, because it can't tolerate, it's bunged up and coughing. You haven't said if your baby's got it.
But the other thing to say is that you're at 5 months, so you have established a milk supply. Your body knows how to produce enough milk for your baby, even if it takes a dip, which it may do because you're not feeling great yourself. Even if it takes a dip, it will come back up again. We know that mothers, for one reason or another, might cut back on feeding and then ramp it back up again, and that is fine, and it will work. Your body knows how to make that much milk, so I would just give your baby free access at the breast. Keep going as best you can. As Naomi says, your baby's not feeling too great either, and that might be part of it. But the fact that you have produced this much milk, you will produce it again.
It's in your memory.
Yeah, and your baby, just more frequent feeds. I think just let your baby have just what they need and just keep going.
Keep yourself hydrated.
Yes, exactly. She says he's not poorly, not COVID. So, and you've said that you'll be devastated. I don't see that you'll have to stop. This might be just a little blip.
Do some compressions when you're feeding, because that will really stimulate letdowns and more milk production as well. And do what you can when you're feeling poorly, and as you start to feel better, then maybe think about doing some pumping as well in between, just to see if you can do some really good stimulations. Because you've done so well, and Alexa said the milk production will come back. If it drops down, it will come back.
It's this whole thing about you've laid your foundations in the first couple of weeks after your baby's born, and your body knows how to make that much milk. Each lactation is different. So this lactation, you've had enough milk for your baby up to 5 months. Your body knows how to do that, and if you can have a transitory dip, but you can get it back up again. So it will be a case of just getting the baby on. I think as you begin to feel better, it'll start to go. Hopefully it'll be a nice mild dose of COVID, and you won't feel too unwell with it.
I think it's inevitable. We don't talk very much about COVID anymore because it's sort of such a big part of our lives as normal now that we've just accepted it. But there will be a time when, one or other of you has got COVID. Everybody is getting COVID now, and it really isn't very nice. So it's still around, but just be aware that, you might feel like that and your milk production might go down. The other thing to say is if you do get it and you've got it early on, then wear a mask if you're feeding your baby, if you've had very little exposure to your baby at that time. But if your baby's 5 months old, it may be that it pulls at your face and pulls the mask off, because that's what they do at 5 months, isn't it? They pull everything, and if that's the case, then don't let them touch the mask. You're better off without it. But if it's early days, then in your feeding, then wear a mask while you're feeding your baby, so that you just minimalise the.
But also to remind yourself, to remind you that, as every person in this country can tell you these days, that breast milk is full of antibodies. Because if you ask anybody why does it matter to breastfeed, and they will tell you antibodies. But actually that is so very valid in this instance, because remember that your body is fighting this virus, and your body is producing
already. It will be producing antibodies to COVID
before you even knew you were ill, probably. And it's producing the protection for you, and it's putting it in your milk, and it is protecting your baby. So don't stop breastfeeding. Keep going. Your baby will be benefiting from getting all
the vaccine for your baby.
Exactly. So keep going. But she's come back and said, "I really hope so. Thanks so much. You've reassured me." But I think you've done a brilliant job. You've got to 5 months. This is a blip. It will get better. So I really hope.
Sorry to hear you've got it. It's really miserable.
I'm sorry you had to write your message up in about 5 goes. But it worked. It worked. We gave you a little bit of time when Sasha and Debbie came in.
And I'm sure other mums are going to comment on the fact that they've had COVID and got through it, and it might have happened to them. But be reassured that you probably will step that supply back up.
You've got to giggle because they came in to try and give these flowers, but there's a bed behind here, you see, so they couldn't get in the room.
They thought they were going to walk in gracefully and they crashed into the bed.
It was quite funny. We blocked ourselves in. When we first used to do it, we always used to get interrupted for teas and coffees, didn't we? But, anyway, I don't know. Any more questions? So Jenna, I'm really feeling for you. I hope you feel better soon. Look after yourself.
And hopefully all of you are outside in this lovely sunshine that we've got today. It's been a while coming, hasn't it? So we've kept going. We've been quite busy, haven't we? On the ward. Yeah, we are. So, clinics aren't too bad at the moment. We're able to accommodate people. So if you're worried about anything, don't forget that you've got the local to you. Use your local services first before you get to us, unless it's something very specifically complex. Because you don't want to be traipsing into the John Radcliffe if you live 25 miles away, unless you absolutely have to come. So use your local care. So your midwife is your primary care if your baby's under a month, probably 14 days most people are discharged by, but some are kept on till about 28 days. And so, certainly most MLUs will see you for the first couple of weeks if you've got normal breastfeeding problems, like, slightly positioning and attachment or painful nipples or anything like that. And then you've got also the Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, and you've got La Leche League, the NCT,
Abingdon Breastfeeding Cafe.
Breastfeeding Cafe. And everything in between. So there's lots of sort of baby bars and breastfeeding support. I think there's some in Bicester, there's one in Wallingford.
And the health visitors are doing their baby lunch boxes. They're all back up and running as well. So talk to your health visitor about your nearest one. So that's breastfeeding support as well, run by the health visitors. So it's not as if we haven't got the support for you. There is plenty out there. It's a case of accessing it.
And don't sit and struggle at home. Make sure that you tell people about us, because we still get mums that say they didn't know about us, and they find out when they have their second baby, and their midwife refers them to us, and actually that's so sad that they didn't know that we existed. We've got a really good website on the Women's Centre website, on the Trust website, and you just put in infant feeding, John Radcliffe infant feeding, and it'll come straight up onto our page. So make sure that you tell people to watch us, or to find resources, or to know that they can access support, and the closer to home the better. And then if they see you in the support services in the community and they think there's more of a problem, they will ask you to ring us as well. They will advise you that you phone us and talk to us as well. So we're sort of not the first port of call for most people. You want to be local and have local support with normal and with your midwives or health visitors. So make sure you do access services though, and you don't struggle.
Right.
How are we doing for time?
We're at past. We were a bit late starting, but it is past. And Charlotte's just popped up to say that she can't wait to go on her trip. It's the first time she's flown for a while. She said Alicia's going to love walking along the beach. Just watch out, she'll eat all the sand. And she reckons she'll like being in the pool. Well, we'll think of you on your holiday. But,
Very envious.
yeah, so Jenna, I hope you feel better soon.
Yeah.
And thank you to all the comments about
Lovely comments.
yeah, and the lovely things that were said about OA and level 5, but also the support about feeding after a section. I think that was lovely that when other mums come on and say you'll be okay. I think that's really reassuring.
And I think that's been one of the biggest things that's been missing in COVID is that you haven't had toddler groups and mum and baby groups, things like yoga and health visitors used to run mum and baby groups for the early days. So you might have sessions on just getting through the first few weeks, and all of that's gone. So for the first year and a half of COVID, nobody met anybody. So the people that had babies in the beginning and went back to work after a year, they'd never met other mothers with babies. And so you didn't have that peer support that many of us,
benefited from it in a way.
And had to have. It was the only way we got through the day was to meet up with other mothers and eat cake, because it absolutely is. It can be such long days and very, very difficult, sometimes very boring days when you've got a baby and it's just you and your baby. So, having something planned, and somebody always said to me, have something planned for the day before you've opened your eyes, even if it's going to Sainsbury's, before you open your eyes and get out of bed, know that you've got something to get out of bed for, because sometimes it can be really tough when you've just got the two of you in bed in the morning and you haven't slept very well at night. It's really important that you have that motivation to.
And I think if you've been used to being the boss of your own life, if you've been the sort of person who would get up in the morning and maybe have a job that gives you a lot of satisfaction, or you're very very active in what you do, and then to find yourself unable to be dressed by the end of the day and you're still in your PJs and you haven't managed
to the gym or anything like that.
Actually, it's quite a challenge. It is a challenge for everybody. So those of you, I think that's where it gets much better, and it's so worth it.
And there's so many good days that outweigh bad days.
Yeah.
But in the early days, a lot of you think, what have I done? And that's quite a normal response, but
I think the extension of paternity leave is really helping, though. I think nowadays, when many partners, partner leave, many partners will have a fair few weeks off. It makes an enormous difference because you're a team and you get a system going, and then you can, you get over those first few weeks in a team situation as opposed to facing on your own.
I think they also feel very involved and they feel that they've done more for their baby. I think sometimes men feel that it's not their baby and they can't do much to help.
I think in the days when you and I had children, there's no such thing as paternity leave, really.
Not very much. I think it was a week, wasn't it?
2 days my husband got, so that was it. And one of the days was the day I had the baby. So Lee, 1 day. But anyway. Charlotte's just come up and wished Jenna good, hoping she'll get well soon. So I think that's from all of us. Should we call it a day? Should we come back next week? I'll come back and I will look at that biting thing. I'll have a look and see what it says on there, because that would be quite interesting to know. What other people suggest to do when babies bite when they're feeding. Thank you very much, and I'm going to wave my flowers and just show you our lovely flowers that we were given.
Yes, look at that.
The interruption. So it's the International Day of the Midwife. So.
Very nice.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Yeah, we'll do.
Bye from us.
Bye.
Bye.